This is chapter 6, and this is lesson 1, using percent proportions. This whole chapter is about percents. I know some of you had a rough time with percents last year, so hopefully just from getting older and maybe learning a little more, you will be able to find percents fine this year. I think it'll go a lot better than it did last year. So what is a percent? A percent is a part of something. So if you think of like your tests or your quizzes and we ever have like a percent on top, that means the percent that you got right of the questions that were asked on the test. So we're going to look at percents in a lot of different ways this chapter. We're going to talk about tax, tips. We're going to just find percents, find parts, find totals. And today is just a simple lesson, and it's called using percent proportions. And you can use your calculator this chapter again, but as long as you're kind of showing me what you're doing, we'll be fine. So the first thing I want to talk about is just a kind of refresher, and it's writing decimals and fractions as percents. So there's some basic rules for writing decimals as percents. So this is what I have below. Decimals to percents. And to do that, you would move the decimal 2 places to the right. So if you're going to make a decimal a percent, the rule is you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So for example, if you have this one up here, 0.24, you're going to take this and you're going to move it 2 places this way, 1, 2. So 0.24 will be 24%. So over here, the same thing. I'm going to move it 2 spaces. It's always 2. It's never 3. It's never 1. Even if you run out of space, it's always 2. So 1, 2. This is going to be 0.38%. If you would have, let's see, 0.4, and you didn't make that a percent, it's still going to move 2 spaces. Even though it looks like you're running out of space, you can always put a 0 there, and that would be 40%. Now, what about fractions to percents? Well, this is what I do every day on your tests, on your quizzes. For example, if you got 5 out of 6 right on your test, I've always taught you to take 5 divided by 6, and you can do that on your calculator, 5 divided by 6. And maybe you get a decimal like this one looks like this. Okay. Now, and I've always taught you how to find your percent, and you move the decimal 2 spaces. So this would be about 83.3%. So if you want to change a fraction to a percent, it's exactly like what I do on your tests and quizzes. And some of you do it on your assignments also. So 9 out of 20. So let's say you get 9 right out of 20. Your percent would be, well, your decimal would be 0.45. Moving it over would be 45%. Another thing I want to quick talk about, and I don't have this here, but what if I want to change a percent to a decimal? Okay, and the rule is simple. Just like above, you're going to move decimal 2 spaces left. So if you have a 43%, your decimal is always at the end of a whole number. So you move it 2 spaces this way. This is be 0.43. Sometimes your percents will have a decimal already in them. So like if you have a 32.3%, just because it already has a decimal doesn't mean it's in decimal format. You still have to move that decimal to get rid of that percent sign. So 2 spaces would be 0.323. Okay, so the proportion way, a lot of you were probably pretty fond of last year. It's easy to set up. It's simple to set up as long as you know what goes where. So the first thing I need you to write down in your notes is this. You're going to write part over total equals percent over 100. And if you know exactly where to insert things into this proportion, it's a foolproof and you can get a simple answer. Notice that the proportion is the first lesson in the chapter, and proportions was our whole chapter last time. So they're kind of building off what we did last time. So part over total equals percent over 100. One of the things I want to talk about here is sometimes we can use keywords to figure out what that part and that total is. And the keyword for part is, and the keyword for total is of. Some people remember it is over of equals percent over 100. The thing that's always set in stone here is the 100. It never moves, it never changes, it's always out of 100. All right, so how are we going to use this? There's quite a few there's 3 types of problems you're going to see today. You're going to see a problem asking for the part. You're going to see a problem asking for the total, and you're going to see a problem asking for the percent. So we're going to start simple. We're going to look at this one up here. And it says 45% of 1,500 is what number? Well, we can start already by putting in 100. We already know 100 is going to go in there regardless. Another thing I could automatically put in is my percent. Do you see how there's a percent in there? It says 45%. I'm going to put that right where the percent should go. Okay, the other part is probably the trickiest part of the whole thing, the part in the total. If I say 45% of 1,500 is what number? My total here is 1,500 because I'm looking for 45% of that. And I know that 45% of 1,500 is going to give me a smaller number and it's going to give me a portion of 1,500. Remember before we talked about is and of? Okay, so another way you can look at it is like here's your percent of 1,500. Notice it's asking for is what number. That's like what you're looking for. So now you can say, okay, well, of goes in the bottom. My is what number, it's asking for that. This is what it would look like. This is your proportion. And then you'd go ahead and solve like we did last chapter. You're going to use your cross products, 1,500 times 45, all divided by 100. And you should get 675. So 45% of 1,500 is 675. Okay, so here's another type. This one is asking for the percent this time. I can just tell because there's no percent in the problem. So I'm just going to start by setting up my proportion. I know 100 goes in here. What percent of 1,200 is 276? So I know 276 is part of 1,200, and it's asking what percent that is. So I already know what my part and what my total is. But if you don't know, you can look at it this way: what percent? Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. Of 1,200 is 276. So my of would be down here, or my total, and my part is on top. My percent's what I'm looking for, so that can be my x. I use my cross products. 276 times 100 divided by 1,200, and you get 23. So 23%. So 276 is 23% of 1,200. Okay, so let's try another one. We'll try the one above here. Move this one down a little bit if I can. Okay, 12 is 20% of what number? I'm always going to put my 100 in there, and I can already see there's a percent, so percent always goes in the percent spot. You don't even need to put this percent sign, just put the 20. I don't know why I did that. All right, so then I have kids that ask me questions, and they'll be like, well, the is right beside the percent. No, if the percent is in there, the percent trumps any is or of, and it always goes in the percent spot. So now if we look at this, we said 12 is 20%. It's asking for of what number this time? So your of or your total is going to be your x, and your 12 is going to go on top. So cross products, and your answer would be 60. We could do that one in our head probably. 60. All right, I want you to try one by yourself. I want you to try this one for me. Now, there's a lot of ways to solve these types of problems. This is only one way. Tomorrow, we're going to venture out and try another way. After these, we learn this way, and the way I'm going to show you tomorrow, then you can decide whatever way you want to use is fine. I do not care, because most likely you're going to pick one way and you're going to stick with it for the rest of your life. So I really don't care which one you use. So go ahead and try this one by yourself if you haven't started already. Okay, my two things I set in stone there. What number is of 835? My of is going to go down here, so I'm looking for part of it. That's what it's going to look like. And I'm going to use my cross products, which I hope you did already, times 46 divided by 100, and I get 384.1. All right, why don't you also try these two yourself? Go ahead and pause me. Try these two yourself, and then I'll show you the answers. Okay, so for the first one, it should be set up like this. Okay, so 42 times 35 divided by 100 is 14. This should be 14.7. And this one, I think this is the easy one. What percent of 60 is 15? So 15, 60, x, 15 times 100 divided by 60, 25. I knew that's what it was going to be. Just want to make sure, 25%. All right. All right, one of the last things I want to do with you is just a simple story problem. The hardest thing about a story problem is to determine what is the part and what's the total. And then sometimes it's asking for percent also. So there are 500 students in East Middle School and 425 of the students are in after-school programs. What percentage of the students are in after-school programs? So set up my proportion. I know 100 is going to be here. It's asking me what percent, so I know that that's going to be my x. Now I have to think about it. I said there's 500 students and 425 of them are in the after school program. Or what's the total? How many total students are in the school? Well, 500, that would go on the bottom because if we know part is on the top and total is on the bottom. And part of them, which of 425 of them, are in the after school program. So this is how your proportion would look. And you do 425 times 100 divided by 500. And you should get 85. So 85% of those kids are in an after school program. Okay, if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. That's all I have for you today. Make sure you take a few notes, write a few things down, because I think some of you are really going to like this proportion way. So taking the best notes on this way is probably going to be your best bet to be able to look back and use it later on in the chapter. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you tomorrow.